Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Up. I'm so glad you're here today because we are talking about emotional intelligence, and I'm really excited to get started with the quote of the week, which is ready for it. It's a mouthful. The quote is emotional intelligence is a way of recognizing, understanding, and choosing how we think, feel, and act. It shapes our interactions with others and our understanding of ourselves. It defines how and what we learn. It allows us to set priorities. It determines the majority of our daily actions. Research suggests it is responsible for as much as 80% of the success in our lives. And that's by Jay Friedman. And I was like, whoa, 80%. That's a lot, but it totally makes sense. And we're going to talk about it. But I just felt like to digest that quote, because that's a long quote, but it's really about what we're saying, what we're doing, how we're thinking, feeling, and executing that and communicating that. And I think in relationships, especially just in the work environment, your business, your relationships, it can really make such a difference of how we communicate things. Because you can communicate the same exact thing, but it's how it's delivered makes all the difference. And that goes into emotional intelligence, being able to have emotional intelligence. So, with that being said, what is the difference between having high emotional intelligence and low emotional intelligence? So, if you have high emotional intelligence, you're stable, you're consistent, you're a good listener, patient, assertive, ambitious. There's a million other reasons why somebody is emotionally intelligent on a high level, and being able to look at that, like, are you a good listener? Because some people just talk, 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 and maybe they're not really listening of what's going on to understand how to manage or navigate, um, whether it's in a work environment or personal environment. And some people who have low emotional intelligence, you'll see that they might be a little bit more passive or slower to like respond on something, maybe stubborn, resistant, aggressive, demanding. All of those factors play a part when you have more of a lower side of emotional intelligence. There's not right or wrong. It's just being able to identify what's the difference. So, why is it so important? Well, the importance of having emotions as a business owner. The first aspect is you have increased leadership ability, decision making, team performance, and personal well being. So, we're going to start with leadership ability. We are able to lead a team when you're working with multiple people. Sometimes you're working with a lot of different people on like that are freelance, but being able to be a leader, there's a difference between a boss and a leader. And I learned this very quickly in my career. And thankfully, I've had a lot of leaders in my life, a couple bosses, um, but majority have been leaders. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But when we look at being able to be a leader, you have other people that can be leaders because they see by example how you're saying things, how you're showing up, how you are engaging with them makes all the difference. Especially you want a great team when you are running a business, when you are growing it, scaling it, or just even running it, you want people that are fantastic. And but as a business owner, have that leadership ability to lead your team to success because it's everyone around you too. It's not just you. And then the next one is decision making. You have the ability to be very decisive. I talked about this on, I think it was 2 videos ago now, but being able to be very decisive. Okay, this, not that. And being able to make those decisions also allows your and like your business to feel that. Like they feel that effect. If you're indecisive or you're not sure what your niche is as a business, that is going to be seen through if you're not very clear about it. And then team performance. When you have a great leader, everyone around you feels that. If you have somebody who is not a great leader, that is also going to be felt. And that is a reflection of how they're showing up. How are you giving them tasks, projects, and things to help grow your business, but they're growing as individuals, whether they're freelance or they're working for you full time, whatever it may be. But really being able to do that, but that's going to be based off of how you interact with them. And then your personal well-being. It's just so important that we're taking care of our own emotional well-being so we can show up so powerfully for our business and for those that we serve. And then what you will see if somebody doesn't, that like with the emotional intelligence being high, you're going to have a decrease of staff turnover because people are going to want to work for you. They're going to want to work with you because you're so understanding, because you have that compassion, because you're able to navigate difficult situations, but also be that leader that people want, and that need. And then also the stress about the job will go down as well because people feel that. People feel things more than maybe talk about or say or do. But like when you feel it, that everywhere. If you have happy employees, that's going to show. You don't, that's also going to show. And that's why it's really important as a business owner so you can have that full effect, just really being able to have a strong foundation. So, going into the quadrants of, or not even the quadrants, but being able to understand emotional intelligence on a deeper level and each part of it. So, the first one is self awareness. So, self awareness is aware of emotional state. So, being able to understand your own emotions, understand how you show up, what you're doing is really important. But the next piece of that is self assessment. So, noticing when others influence your emotional state. So, maybe somebody aggravated you or is not understanding you accurately, and you're trying to explain something. Take a step back, notice how are you making other people feel? How are you feeling? But when we're able to really take note of what's going on for us, that is going to be able to reduce any impact that is negative on anyone else as well if we're feeling a certain way. And then the next piece of that is recognizing the impact your behavior has on others. Because if you are communicating something that you are being very clear about, being very understanding, matter of fact, but in a way that's digestible. Because sometimes people, like I've experienced people like barking orders or seen it, but being able to understand, taking a step back and recognizing, okay, how is this motivating the person to do more? Is it decreasing that? Is it changing the environment, energy around us? That can really be impactful, to understand that and recognize it. Then self-confidence, being confident in yourself. Especially when you're a leader, you don't have that energy of having to prove yourself or to the people that are working for you, even in freelance, but just really standing in your power. And I think, it's so beautiful. Like a lot of the amazing leaders that have been in my life and that continue to come into my life, I just see this beautiful confidence about them. They don't stress about certain things and they don't need to tell you who they are. It's just their energy shows that in such a beautiful light. So it's just really having that confidence. And then the next aspect of emotional intelligence is self-management. So the first aspect is self-control, keeping your emotions that are impulsive and disruptive in check. So when we're able to understand, okay, I'm upset right now, you need to take a step back, or you need to talk to one of your employees about something, taking a step back, controlling the emotions in that moment, so you don't say or do anything that you're going to regret, and being able to understand that a little clearer. So having that control, right? Because the thing is, you can't control how you feel, but you can control how you execute that feeling and being able to keep it back. The next aspect is transparency, acting in congruence with your values. When you are just truly saying what you mean and doing what you mean are so important. And especially like, what is your mission statement of your business? How does that align? How do those values align? How does that show up in your employees? Being able to understand that as well, or just people that are working with you, for you, being just really transparent. Next one is achievement, pursuing opportunities and goals, regardless of the setbacks and obstacles, because there's always going to be obstacles, but it's how do you overcome them? And that's kind of like the fun part of being an entrepreneur, like, and being able to see, okay, well, this didn't work. What can we do? How can we approach this differently? It's getting super creative with it. And that's how we achieve things because don't give up. The only way you don't achieve something is if you give up. And then being able to be adaptable, like handling change. Things can change so quickly. For instance, and I bring this up a lot because it's still kind of relevant, but COVID changed a lot of things in our world and people had to adapt quickly, especially as a business owner. If you were a brick and mortar, you had to change your business or do something different or change, especially for instance, restaurants, they they just were sitting like dining in only. Maybe they added takeout, maybe they added Uber Eats and Postmates and other things that are like DoorDash, any of those things. I don't know if but being able to handle change, adapt quickly, that's what makes successful, but also being able to manage ourselves and handle, okay, maybe somebody can't work with you anymore, or something happens, or you have to think of plan B. Being able to navigate that is so important. And that's a high quality of somebody who's emotionally intelligent. Well, and then the initiative, just taking the initiative of things, being able to manage things aren't going your way. How do you handle that? And then being optimistic, being able to look at the optimism of what's going on and how do you again navigate that and figure out what is going to be the best option and looking at the bright side of things and the silver lining. Because a lot of times things are happening for us, not to us. And I've realized this time and time again, any time in my life where I'm just like, what is happening? But then when I take a step back, I'm like, ah, that makes sense. Like I connect the dots, but it's really looking for those silver lining of things. And then we get into social awareness. Now, this is big. The first one is empathy. So, caring what someone is going through, understanding everyone's going to have a hard time. There's roller coasters happening all the time, and we don't plan it, it just happens. But when we're able to pick up on somebody's going through something and just having that empathetic ear and like creating a space for them, obviously, different environments, different times, there's a time and place for everything, but being able to be empathetic is super important, and that's part of emotion. And then being approachable. Whew, that is so important. As a business owner, when we are dealing with different people and we have, whether it's clients, customers, or employees, freelance, whatever the business structure looks like, being approachable is key. So key. Because when we look at it, if you can approach somebody about something, if you're having a difficult time with something, that says more about that person, but it's creating again that space of just having that open dialogue and being effectively and efficient. Because when we're not able to do that, that shows a little bit of a situation where you don't feel like you can open, and that person might not have that high emotional intelligence. And that's a huge sign of it. If they're not approachable, it might be on the lower end. And then, good listener. So being a good listener, I think that is so important. Listening to what's happening, listening to what's not being said. Something that I have really learned as like when I was working in the psychology field, therapists being able to really listen to people, listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're not saying, listen to how their voice changes, what might be happening. But I think that is such a key element and skill set that not everyone has, but when you have emotional intelligence, that is one of the key, especially when you're in a setting and just being aware of. And then organizational awareness. So looking at the entire organization. You have a huge business or small, it doesn't matter, but looking at what is going on in that organization, what is happening, how can we improve it to make sure that everybody's on the same page and creating a really strong work culture that is safe, approachable, and you want to continue to grow that and everyone to feel welcome. And that's part of the awareness piece too. And then picking up on the energy in the room. I love this one because it's so interesting. Like I'm a very observant person. I'm very reserved. I wouldn't say I'm shy, but I'm very reserved because I will pick up on what's going on, what's not being said, all the nonverbals. And I think I probably had said this in another video, but really looking at, I would say about like 80% of communication is nonverbals. It's what are we doing with our eyes, our mouth, like our body language, like everything makes such a difference. But being able to pick up, like somebody's having a hard time or not being able to communicate clearly, like going to them, or if you see like everyone's together except one person, like being able to pick up on those things is so key. But I know in a world right now, like virtually, a lot of things are online, but just maybe looking at like, okay, somebody seems engaged, what's going on? Being able to just pick up on that stuff is so key. And I feel like as a business owner, that's really important too for the morale of your. And then the last one is active listening what somebody is saying, really listening to that, what is going on, like reading between the lines. Obviously, sometimes people are like, I don't have time, but I think it'll make such a difference if you really want your business to grow and succeed, and just having that emotional intelligence of being able to what is being said, what's not being said, how can I insert myself to really help this person or be able to connect with them so I can help them more or understand where they're coming from. Because it's not sometimes putting yourself in their shoes, but it's also looking at things objectively as well can really be beneficial. And then we get to relationship management. And I love this one because it's definitely an area, but I think, and why I say that is just like my background with marriage and family therapy, being able to understand relationships dynamic. And it wasn't just relationships, it's whole system work, whether it is a storefront or like brick and mortar, or if it's online, or if it's just a service that you provide, whatever it may be. The first one is like clearly expressing ideas. Because when we're able to influence that, being able to really express ourselves, that can have such others as well, and being able to where they're coming from, because it's getting that clarity too. But we have such an relationships that we're in with business, personal, whatever it may be. But being able to look at like how do we influence people based off of our energy, what we're saying, do we motivate them, do we not? What does that look like? The next one is inspirational leadership, and it's handling conflict successfully. The thing is, there's going to be conflict, absolutely. But it's how do we handle that? How do we approach situations that are uncomfortable or might not even really want to address, but we need to? But being able to inspire people to feel like they can come to you or create that space. And that's part of relationships being, whether, especially in business, but also in our personal relationships too, that emotional connection. But I think when we're able to handle a conflict successfully, we can move forward instead of feeling stuck or making spiral downwards, but really being able to be like, okay, wow, it's like building the bricks of like one by one and handling it successfully and being able to really influence people on a leadership level. And when we are leaders, it's important it's to have that, being able to handle those. The next one is coach and mentor. This is a huge part of relationships. Using empathy to manage interactions effectively. Again, it's that piece of you are a coach, you are a mentor when you are a leader. And I mean, even if you are a coach, like I'm an entrepreneur coach, but being able to understand how to navigate those relationships of when do you push, when do you pull back a little, when are you guiding, when are you just like cheering them in the corner and seeing run off in the distance because they're ready to launch. But being able to understand when we manage those things effectively, it just empowers the other person to want to do, want to grow. I know in coaching as well, like being able to manage those relationships is, I just love it. I love seeing thrive, but it's because they are being pushed when they need to, and I'm pulling back when I need to allow them to figure it out, but really being in at all times and managing that and how that fluctuates day to day, month to month, and then grow and evolve and thrive. And then it's time to go. And then they come back, they come back. But it's really just being that space for them to really be honest and transparent and not feel judged or shamed for saying or doing whatever it may be. And then the next aspect is teamwork and collaboration along with others. Well, like, I mean, think about it. I mean, that's something we learn in grade school, but you'd be surprised. um, I really think too, it's like having that aspect of collaboration. I know I collaborate with a lot of amazing women entrepreneurs, and I absolutely adore all of them, and so grateful I've had that experience. But when it comes to running your business too and having that teamwork aspect, you want everyone's going to have different personalities, but how does that blend together? How do you make it all work and fit into a puzzle that makes sense for you? And I think people to look at who works well together could really benefit from one another. How can we navigate that? And I think we're able to do that. And that's part of emotional intelligence, like being able to them from such a deep level of how important it is, because you don't have it's like one team, one dream. If you ever heard that saying, it's true, because when we're all working towards a common goal, but everyone has a different part in that, if somebody's not there, that can affect it. So for instance, when I was in high school and college, I cheered competitively, and then for high school and college competitively as well. But it's interesting because if one person had missed practice, we couldn't throw our stunt. And a stunt is when the girl's on the bottom holding up another girl, throwing her up in the air. They used to like throw me up. But if somebody wasn't there, the stunt wouldn't work. You needed everybody there to really make it work and to practice it to get better and better and make progress. But that's the point, getting along with others and being effectively, really managing that relationship. And then the last thing is being able to change of a catalyst. And what does that mean? Just engaging, motivating, and also coordinating with, when we're able to really just engage with what's going on in the emotions. How are you motivating somebody? What are you doing to really continue to build that legacy that you're building, that business you're building, whatever it may be? But it needs to come from the leader, and like creating other leaders too, because maybe they'll want to go off and do their own business. But a lot of times that's what I was talking about with freelance. They might have their own business, but they're working for a project. But I think too, we have such an opportunity when it comes to our relationships to really just be engaging with people and really motivating them to be their best selves, but also create such a powerful space for everybody to fit into that space. And everyone has their own business and everything along those lines, but really being able to come together. And that's my point of that, is really being able to understand the depth of how we are dealing with our relationships and to the best that we can, and continue to grow and learn, because everybody's going to teach us something different. But I think you're really able to do that. It just shows to the level of emotion you have. So I hope that was helpful for today. I had such a fun time talking about emotional intelligence. It's one of my favorite topics. But I hope you learned something too. Let me know, what did you learn? Is there something new, or maybe something that you elaborate on? I could always do another video about that. But again, thank you for joining. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.